Hello, guys, and welcome to the final Loki Wednesday for now, where we are going to dig into full spoilers for what we can now say is the season finale of Loki. We'll talk about that as we talk about the story. But yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, it's up obviously on Disney Plus. Go watch it, then come back here and watch this video because yeah, we're going to dig into everything that happened in this final hour of the first season. All right, that's it. 3, 2, 1. Full spoiler zone now for Loki. You're still with us? Great. Let's jump into this, guys. We got Kim, we got Lon. Thanks for being here, guys. And let's talk about For All Time Always. This came from, Kate Herron directed every episode of this, but this episode was written by Michael Waldron, the head writer. I think this is the one, I can't remember if he did the premiere, but certainly he's back for the finale, writing it himself. And obviously there's a very special guest star in this episode that we can talk about.
Wow.
Yes, Mr. Jonathan.
Star. Emphasis on star.
Yes. So yeah, this is a show that I think we've been into for the brunt of its run. But what are your overall first thoughts here of the season finale of Loki?
I mean, it was a funny little low-key finale to a season after the crescendo of last week, where we got Crokey, who we all fell in love with, and classic Loki. But in a way, it circled back to the beginning, which was the episode 1 was exposition heavy, and this was quite exposition heavy too. But having said that, it did keep me glued, and I would probably credit Jonathan Majors and his performance with that, along with some questions that it raised in my mind. But yeah, I mean, it answered some questions, but raised a lot more. And I will say my head is definitely very scrambled after watching it. And I've watched it twice. And I kind of wanted it to have repercussions on the MCU as a whole, the series, which it definitely did. But I also wanted it to stand on its own. And I know that's a really tall order, and so I'm kind of frustrated.
Wow.
On.
I didn't expect that. I totally agree. I thought I was going to be the odd man out on this. Look, as a setup for what's to come in the MCU, this was great. I liked meeting Jonathan Majors in this context. I liked him getting a little room to breathe and explain what his sort of deal is and giving us this interesting, odd perspective on the universe. And it absolutely shows you where some of these other projects can go in ways that are interesting and broadens our understanding of the significance of how the Loki series is going to fit in. So as far as all of that goes, I thought it did a very good job. As an ending to the TV show Loki's first season, I thought it was a letdown. I wanted a final episode that spent more time with the characters we've come to know and love in this show. And it feels like everybody and everything got the short shrift except for Jonathan Major as he who remains / the conqueror / the guy in the man in the high castle, whatever we're calling him, because they didn't seem to want to use the name we were all expecting.
The K word.
Yeah. Well, and they didn't even use the I word because I had said, it's not going to be Kang. It's going to be a Mortis, which is another version. And he's dressed like a Mortis. Yes. But they still didn't use that name.
No, they didn't. I mean, I feel like they're saving that, for down the road. That'll be a reveal of some kind. But I don't know. It felt like we all of these Marvel Disney shows, they're all kind of circular, like by design. They have to be these kind of self-contained little bubbles that advance your understanding of some aspects of the world, but basically come back to where they begin because they don't want to change the story radically for people who are just watching the movies. So, the Falcon and Winter Soldier opens with, we think Sam Wilson's going to become Captain America. At first he doesn't, but then by the end, he's Captain America. And like WandaVision is like, maybe she's going to have Vision's back and she's going to have these 2 kids. And it's like, no, maybe in an alternate reality, but this Wanda is still alone in a cabin. And then this one too, it did that where it's like, basically in episode 1, we set up, here's what the TVA is. And that's what the TVA is with only some minor tweaks. Like we thought it was run by 3 lizard guys. oh, it's run by one guy and he's a human and he's from the future. But it's really not that different. We got a lot of info, but not a lot of real lasting change.
I mean, I guess I disagree on that point because of the whole, like, the TVA's existence stopped the multiversal war and now it's going to start up again.
Right.
Thing. But I do agree. Like, I agree with your core complaints, although maybe I'm a little softer on it. Although I had to think on it. I watched this finale at 1 a.m. because I got home from a movie. And I did think, yeah, look, I will say my predictions were mostly wrong. The only thing I got right was I thought Immortus would be in there, not Kang. And I'll take that one because they didn't say the name Immortus, but they dressed him like Immortus. Again.
Well, and this, I mean, it is notable, I think, one aspect of that. This character does die. So we're going to see more variants.
Yes,
so that to me is the biggest thing that Loki as a show has sort of added to the MCU in a lasting way, is this idea of this is what a variant is, and this is how variants are created and exist, and this is the danger of having multiple variants stacking up across multiple timelines.
Right. But it's like funny because, the thing I was way off on, and I saw you, Lon, you were tweeting similar thoughts, is like, the whole, like, well, I don't think Kang will, if Kang's in the finale at all, it'll be the post-credit, because I don't think you're going to have Kang show up in the finale and just be like, hey, it's been me the whole time. Here's my deal. And then it kind of was. Again, he wasn't Kang specifically, but it was a character we'd never met showing up and saying, here's my deal.
Not only that, but it was literally like, come into my office, have a seat. Here's a little graphical presentation I've prepared about my origin and background. It's like, we've seen that scene so many times in so many Marvel projects. It's just like, oh, this is the Loki finale too, is another like Jor-El giving you the Krypton history presentation. Like, how many times do we have to see this kind of idea? Or, like Star-Lord's dad showing him the history of his life in sort of a, I prepared this PowerPoint for you. Like, I don't know. I'm tired of that stuff.
Yeah, I guess it's just, I wish there was a way they could have done it with a more truncated way, because it's that it takes so much of the finale, and yes, it circles back to Loki and Sylvie and their dynamic and this big moment between them, but for a lot of the finale, they're sitting listening to him as we are sitting listening to him. Too much time, I think, of the finale is spent as them becoming the audience. Yeah.
And Owen Wilson and Renslayer, and like we've created this whole world that's really rich and interesting that we've been spending all of this time in, and it does feel like they got so distracted by this big bright shiny thing in the future. Oh, look at Phase 4. That it's like, well, wait, but we're just gonna like real quietly scuttle that stuff. That's why.
Were you gonna say, Kim?
Well, I was just gonna say, I do agree with all that, but he was the most interesting thing about this episode, and in a good way, kind of, because I'm left thinking, well, lots of things about this character that may or may not be called K in some parallel universe. So he positions himself as the benevolent version of this being. There are far more evil versions than me out there, but I struggle to see how much more evil one of these can be. If he stops the multiversal war by winning the war. So if one of the other Kangs had won it, then surely they would do similar, take over, control things, be the ruler. So how is he a benevolent ruler? I fail to understand that. But maybe his ending was interesting, because when Sylvie says to him, are you not going to beg for your life? And he just says, see you soon, winks at her and laughs. And so it's a strange reaction from somebody who wants to protect his universe. There must be some reason. He talks about reincarnation, which I assume is different from different variants of a character.
Right.
Go on. I had a question about this. Maybe Eric, maybe you can help, because this touches on one of my big sort of. There was a moment where he sort of tells Sylvie and Loki, we just passed the moment where I know what happens.
Yeah.
So his superpower, really, when you come right down to it, is knowledge. Like he's been through these timelines and he knows what's going to happen, so he can get ahead of whatever because he knows what everybody's going to do. So I thought that was the explanation for why things resolve. Like he basically gives up because Loki and Sylvie are more powerful than him in that moment. His power has run out. Their free will in that moment means he doesn't know what they're going to do, which means he can't stop them from killing him. Essentially, that was my read. Am I right? Wrong? What do you?
I mean, yeah, I felt like he was saying, because when he first talked to them, he's like, "You can't kill me because you don't."
Well, he still knows what happens in that moment, so he can just like quickie koala, like bloop bloop bloop, and like I'm on the other side of the room. You guys remember Quickie Koala? The old Hanna-Barbera cartoon. He was an old Hanna-Barbera cartoon character. He was a koala, but he was like he had like flash powers. He was lightning fast. So you try to catch him, and he could just go bloop bloop, and now he's like on your head. And it's Jonathan Majors' exact power is Quickie Koala power.
I've seen a lot of people bring up different parallels that this episode, and things that there's a couple people, Alan Sepinwall and Joanna Robinson that I follow on Twitter that I have both mentioned. There's some Lost parallels with Jacob saying, I'm kind of tired of all this, and Ben's decision whether to kill him or not.
Yes, there were a lot of Lost parallels in this episode, almost to the point where I was like, is this purposefully echoing some of these Lost finales?
I think they're doing some little winks there. I will say, like, I woke up feeling better about the finale than I went to sleep on it. Because I do think Jonathan Majors is a lot of fun here, and it's interesting because I saw a lot of people a debate. Was he going too like over the top? Was it right? But also, I think the big thing to keep in mind is this will not be his performance as Kang.
Right.
I mean,
that's what I was going to say. Exactly.
Yeah, it's going to be something very different. And I thought he was a lot of fun. The biggest thing I will say on a messaging level, and this doesn't mean I think because of this finale is now great. I still think too much time was spent on a character we never met. But I do think I wish they had announced ahead of time this is the season finale, not the miniseries finale. Because if this had been the miniseries finale, it would have been terrible. Like, it really would have been bad as far as like, here's a character we've never met showing up to explain everything. Thank you for these 6 episodes. Now we move on to the MCU other stuff. Knowing it's coming back and this is a season finale, I'm a little more forgiving of the like, hey, I'm a major new character, setup thing, even though they should have balanced it better and given us more of the other things we like about the show.
Yeah, I think it's an execution thing less than a, like, I don't think it was like a huge, I think they could have massaged it in a way that felt it was doing more wrap up of Loki while introducing this new thread rather than being so dominated by the new thread. What I was going to say is at the very end, when Loki runs in and he's telling the Hunter, I always get their Hunter numbers mixed up, and Mobius, like, he's giving them all of this brain dump, and then Mobius is like, who are you? That's a very Lost moment. That's like, we have to go back-esque, like cliffhanger TV writing. I like that moment a lot.
Yeah, me too. The Hunter B-15, who has another thing that I thought was really weird in this finale is she purposely leads other TVA members to see like the truth of who Renslayer is. It's kind of like you get the idea she wants to show everyone that we're all variants, but we don't get a follow-up on that. Next time we see her, she's with Mobius. So that I thought was strange. Like what happened after she took that other TVA agent to show, hey, Renslayer is just a teacher in 2018 because she's a variant. I wasn't clear like what happened, like what resulted from that. What do you guys think that was supposed to kind of lead to?
Well, I mean, I'm confused by it as well, but her, I mean, I don't know if you saw, but her name was on the wall in that classroom. Yeah, so Rebecca, the surname escapes me, from the comics was an identity that Renslayer took on at some point. So,
right.
That's not necessarily the case here, but it's interesting about Ravonna, and I felt through the series that there's more to her than just this, clueless, like the rest of them, clueless agent, I suppose, who's had the wool pulled over her eyes. Yes, we know that she still has this loyalty to the way things work, but why is that? And I wonder if Ravonna Renslayer is the original person behind this, and the Rebecca character was actually an identity that she took on.
I liked with Renslayer because I did feel by the end, because I had a lot of back and forth on that throughout the series, but I did feel by the end that she is supposed to be kind of like a true believer who's had her beliefs rocked, but is still like, I want it to make sense. So she goes on this journey that has to lead to Kang. Again, that is a thing from the comics that I don't think they're going to ignore. That like at some point she will, because as far as we know, she still doesn't know the truth. Like it's not like she's not with Loki and Sylvie. So unless she's still keeping it all secret, what do you think about like sort of what her next step is, Lon?
I think this is a great example of how the show kind of was forced to give all of these other characters kind of the short shrift so it could focus on Jonathan Majors in this new thread. Because this felt like this run by sort of scenario, and I wasn't sure why it was there. But my thought is why it's there is they wanted to make it clear to us that on some level, Renslayer is with the variants. She's not a supernatural being. She doesn't exist outside of time. I think that it was partially to clarify that like we're dealing with a world where Jonathan Majors was the element that was creating all of this. Everybody else is just kind of pawns of his on some level. So I don't think we know specifically her relationship to it. She does not seem to know who it is. Like there's one point where Miss Minute says, here's what he wants, so we got to do what the man says. And she's like, who are you talking about? So I feel like, there were a few hints in this episode that like she may have more information than the rest of them, but she does not know everything and is not part of the master plan of Immortus, Kang, Jonathan Majors, the Castle guy.
We pretty much get confirmation that Miss Minutes has been working for him the whole time, though.
He's from the 31st century, so maybe everyone there knows motion graphics and has like a little bit of an animation background. Like I guess they could maybe in like junior high in the 31st century, you learn how to be like a Pixar artist.
Way
so
back,
threw that together.
Ago.
Yeah, because it's pretty good. Like as far as like the design and like getting Tara Strong from our era to do the voice, like very well done, like very professional work.
He's like, this was a very popular voice artist. She would be great for this.
And it's got to be, it's like he's got to have that software set up so like he can make her say whatever, like, he's got endlessly replicatable and it's an AI, very high-end work. He's good.
So it's funny because this finale, it didn't give us nearly as much to talk about as a lot of the episodes because it was so hyper-focused on the Kang setup of it all. But what did you think ultimately of how things played out with Loki and Sylvie? Because that was a big moment. Might have taken too long for it to get to that moment. But, I thought, I liked what happened between them as far as like, his line about you can't trust and I can't be trusted. I am a shipper through and through here. So I was happy about the kiss. But what did you think of how things played out with this strange little Loki on Loki action here?
Yeah, well, I guess there's still some more story to tell between them. I liked seeing the kiss. I've got over my ambivalence about this relationship, and I'm definitely with you, Eric, now. I ship it.
Yes.
But but yeah, the kiss was great, but then she used it to get rid of him through the time door. So that was a bit like, oh no, don't do that. But there's more to tell, isn't there? They'll come back in season 2 and explore their relationship further, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was a really nice moment. I thought they acted it really well. I've watched it twice as well. There's a moment where you could see even in her face where she's kind of making the decision, like, all right, time to shove him through the portal and get on with business. And like, it's a nice moment. And it does feel like the culmination, like this is the big character beat they're giving us to end off the season. Like this is where their arc is going to sort of culminate, that she can't get over her anger and has to go forward. He's going to be on the side of security and like maybe the TVA isn't so bad. And then they get this moment of sort of shared connection that we've all been kind of teasing. I still don't get, like, people are still kind of queasy about this because still technically they're like variations of the same person. It isn't like, so like, it's so impossible. It could never happen in our world. So it's not a thing that upsets me. You're never going to meet your other counterpart from another timeline and have an adventure with them and fall in love. So enjoy it. Just don't fret about it.
You haven't been living my life, Lon. So.
Like if alternate realities that we could pass through and meet our alternate selves were a thing, then maybe I'd be like, ew, but like they're not. So I don't have to worry about it.
I'm pretty sure psychologists say that we are on many of us are attracted to versions of ourselves.
That's
so they're
undeniable.
just living the fantasy.
Yeah.
I sort of stand by my it's weird, but it's not, it doesn't gross me out.
Everything about this show is weird. That can't be a barrier to entry.
Wasn't that actually, I think that is literally Jonathan Major's first line, which was like something about like, this is really weird when he sees the two of them.
But like in a funny way, not in a,
Yeah.
Wild, I think he said.
Oh, wild, wild. Same.
This is wild. Or
this is wild. Yes. Let's go to get some stuff from the chat in a second. But thank you guys so much for watching through these 6 weeks. There'll be obviously more Marvel stuff to talk about in the future. They're not stopping here, guys. Shocking. But please subscribe to our channel for videos every weekday. Hit that like, hit that bell for us. Let's jump around here. I think pull from some of the AMA stuff, and we'll sort of jump back to some of our own topics here. I mean, Coco Puff Jess just sort of asked this, overall basic question here, which is Kang as the big bad in Phase 4 has to be, right? Like, this was a question, I think, when Kang was first announced as the villain in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, those of us who knew the comics were like, he's a really big deal villain. It would be weird if he was just like the villain in the Ant-Man 3, and then that's it. I think, what do you guys think this has as far as solidifying like him as like the major villain? Do you think that's probably appropriate at this point?
Yeah, I think that is the case. I mean, we're yet to see to find out how many versions of him will pop up in what films, but I suppose because they announced him as the villain in Quantumania, the Ant-Man film, which doesn't come out to 2023.
Yeah,
I would think we'll have to wait till then to see him in any major way in the movies. But yeah, but then we'll have another. We've got 2 films in between then, so Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. I can't believe he will have no impact on the Doctor Strange movie, though.
Yeah.
I'm very curious. I mean, I don't propose to know enough about the Marvel comic stuff to have like real thought out theories on it. Like, this is my first experience with Kang, so I'm just going to enjoy it on that level. But my one real question about how they're organizing this is it wasn't like Thanos was introduced immediately in the MCU. It wasn't like we got Iron Man and then Thor, and then right after Thor, there was like, here's Thanos. He's going to be your villain for the next 20 films. It was very gradual. So the fact that we're getting so much of Kang seemingly front-loaded in this, like he's going to be the bad guy in a movie we already know about. Presumably, he's going to have some element of Doctor Strange 2. He's already had a whole showcase sequence in a TV show. It makes me think, I don't know if they're planning on him being we're going to get 2 or 3 more phases, like another 25 films, like an Endgame length arc with him. That seems like too much with one guy, unless there's massive levels of complexity I just don't understand, which maybe there are. But to me, it almost feels like maybe they're switching from a Thanos strategy to more of a, we'll have 2 or 3 big villains in the mix at any one time, and any one of them could lead to a huge climax crossover if we want them to.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking back about how, when they first, 2 years ago at Comic-Con, they're like, hey, WandaVision's coming, and it's going to connect to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And then later they're like, okay, and those 2 will also connect to Spider-Man No Way Home. And then they said, and Loki connects them. And it became this growing thing of these 4 things connecting each other that sounded kind of like a mini arc within the greater MCU.
Right. And maybe when they're finished with that arc, I don't know if we eliminate Kang permanently with the finality of Thanos. Maybe he's just around, and then 5 films from now, if we want to have a big climactic event, could bring him back. But also maybe be setting up. We know, Fantastic Four is coming down the road. Dr. Doom's certainly another villain out there who could be phase level big. Galactus isn't in the mix. The X-Men are still out there. Like, it's not like we're limited with options.
No, there's many. It's just funny to me that all the things I just mentioned will come out before the movie that we know Kang is the actual main villain in. So maybe it's almost like like mini arc idea, passing the baton idea as we sort of skip through all this. But we'll see. Let me see here. We kind of already covered this, but I do want to mention Master Bobby One, who said, "I think you're all forgetting this isn't the series finale; it's a season finale. And most shows, season ones end in a similar format."
What are the chances we would actually be forgetting?
But I do think it's a messaging problem, and I think this is where Marvel. It's like sometimes their secrecy can go too far, and I honestly think if they had announced a few weeks ago, because we talked about how the trades had said they're working on scripts for Loki season 2, but Marvel wouldn't confirm anything. They were super cagey about if there'd be a season 2 of what show. I think if they'd said several weeks ago, "Oh, Loki's coming back from season 2," the first time I watched this would have landed very differently. It was almost like, so we at the end by saying it just made it feel like, okay, I'm letting you off the hook a little more about the villain showing up at the end because it makes more sense thing.
I don't agree. I think season finales wrap up the story of that season and then tease and gear up and set the table for the next one. And this just didn't do as satisfying a job of one as it did the other. I think that's fair to say. And I think if you look back at other shows that knew they were ongoing and episodic, like you still try to wrap up, like that Lost season 3 finale, which is the "we have to go back" reveal. Like obviously that's leaving a huge thing for the next season to fill in, but it also concluded the flash forwards. We thought they were flashbacks. And then that episode was like, actually, dingus, these have all been flash forwards. And so it does draw that story that we've been watching to a satisfying close.
I think it's sorry, Kim, go for it.
I just, for me, the frustrating thing about it, one of the frustrating things is that, it leaves us with this alternate version of Kang at the end, who they don't seem, Mobius and B-15 don't seem to be fearful of particularly, the one that's in charge of the TVA. So, you're questioning, well, what variant is this? Is this the Kang that we will meet in Ant-Man Quantumania, or a different one? And what story is it going to tell? And I find that frustrating that I don't know what's coming, I suppose, in season 2. It doesn't feel set up for me.
I think, again, it's that balance thing, because I think knowing there's a season 2, it makes sense. Okay, you can have this major villain show up, but just that he's like he had so much of the dialogue. It's just that we didn't get enough of the closure for, I think you have to do both. Like I was thinking about other shows that either some shows have introduced a new villain in the mix of a bunch of stuff happening in the finale, or there was like Buffy season 4, I remember, which had like the conclusion of that season's arc in the penultimate episode, and then they set up this, the stuff for the next episode in the actual finale. This left too much to, we wanted at least those feelings of closure. Season finales have to like keep the things going, but feel like you're also doing a concluding chapter. And I just think if there'd been more, if Mobius and Renslayer and B-15 had all had more to do throughout, and honestly Sylvie and Loki too, because they're listening for too much of the finale. It's not that they brought in whatever we want to, he who remains. It's just that, man, he got, like, I think your joke at the beginning, Lon, that he was the guest star who truly was the star, of the episode. Just make that a little more balanced, perfectly balanced, like Thanos knew.
I feel like we've gotten 2 instances of this where beloved characters finally get a solo chance to shine. We got the Black Widow movie and we got the Loki series. And in both cases, they kind of couldn't resist the urge to make them supporting characters in their own. Finally, they get a solo outing, and then all the attention is like, ooh, look at Yelena Belova over here. She's pretty funny. Red Guardian, is pretty good, stronger than Captain America, maybe. And it's just like they kind of feel like they did the same thing. We get Loki finally, and he's at the center of this whole world. And it's like, but this other villain, he's pretty charismatic too. I don't know, guys. They just can't help themselves.
I guess I'm more forgiving. I feel like, because we got a lot of great Loki stuff throughout this season, but because there's only 6 episodes, also it weighs more, right? It's like,
exactly.
An entire 6 of this. Adam Holbert mentions, did the episode remind you of the ending of Snowpiercer, with Kang trying to convince Loki to replace him? That's another one. That's this idea. There's recurring themes here. in fiction, but the Lost one jumped out at me a lot. That one felt really similar. Let's see. Gabe Logan asks, what happened? I think Gabe, we'll talk about this. What happened with the background woman who looked like Peggy Carter in episode 1 being arrested by an agent? Was she an Easter egg? Does her storyline tie into What If? I think it might just be,
that wasn't on my radar at all.
I don't know, but I will say I wanted Casey to come back. Do you remember Casey from the first 2 episodes?
Yes.
What happened?
Yeah.
What happened to him?
So there's got to be a story there because Eugene Cordero is credited on this episode, having not been since the first 2. So I felt like something must have been cut. But I'd be willing to bet, because I was talking to someone on Twitter about this, I bet him not being in the later episodes was a COVID thing, travel thing, because he was mostly a comic relief character. And I just bet it was like getting, this show had to shoot a brunt of it under COVID. They'd started, but came back and filmed more than the other 2. So I wonder if it just, unfortunately, that's what happened. But he was credited.
That's a good point. There might have been something deleted or like some fill-in thing. But I do feel like season 2 is definitely going to keep all of these variants who are enlisted to work at TVA in the mix. Like, they're definitely keeping that thread going through. They had a lot of episodes where we weren't spending that much time at the TVA, but they were always very careful to have at least 1 or 2 scenes back there where the variants are learning about their nature and who they are and coming to terms with what's been done to them. And I think that indicates that season 2 is going to still be TVA centric in some way.
Right. Oh, I'm glad I just remember. It was something I was trying to remember. The thought that crossed my mind is I did think it was funny that when we go back to like predictions being made before any of these shows, but especially before WandaVision, I was like, I know I was off here by an entire, 2 series because it came out after Falcon Winter Soldier. But I remember a lot of predictions, myself included, was that, at the end of WandaVision, Wanda will break the multiverse, setting up Doctor Strange. But it was Sylvie who did it 2 shows later. So basic prediction that one of these shows would end with a powerful female character with mystical powers breaking the multiverse, but a character I didn't even know would exist. So just Marvel needs, like, they know how to sometimes throw us for a little bit of curveball with the expectations there. Let's see. I do want to ask you guys the What If thing. Do you think What If, I know this came up before, but even especially that it's debuting right on the heels of this, will What If have more actual ties than we might expect, even though it's an animated show about, other possibilities? Now that we know they're going this far in the multiverse, do you think that anything they do in What If might actually have repercussions on some, even if it's just like one of these characters showing up in live action in Doctor Strange 2? Like a different version of someone we know. Do you think that What If they'll end up paying off in that way?
I mean, I'd like to think it's a self-contained thing, but of course it's possible. Do I think so? Maybe only in a small way is my answer. I don't think they'll go into any major repercussions here.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I feel like it would be a fun little reference or a joke or something in a future movie, like like having Howard the Duck show up in Endgame, like a fun beat where it's like, oh, they set that up in What If. Except I do think the one thing it would make sense for them to carry on, it's such good casting, is Jeffrey Wright as the voice of Uatu. Yes. Like that, I feel like, okay, he's in the MCU now. If you ever need Uatu if you ever need a quick scene, I guess there was that one in the Guardians Easter egg, but like, if you ever need to use an Uatu voice for anything again, you've got Jeffrey Wright cast now, and that's really good, and keep that. But otherwise, I doubt it would be a major thing.
Yeah. By the way, I don't remember this. Does anyone else? Suze Vera says we didn't get King Loki scenes that were in trailers, and I'm trying to remember, are there some visuals?
Yes, there is one shot for the trailer I saw where he's in some sort of an evil throne room looking thing. And it does look like he's addressing some kind of a crowd or something. I did see this on social media, that there is like one variant of Loki that we saw advertised that we did not meet in the show.
We saw the character eventually in episode 5, but I think we just didn't see more scenes of that character.
Are we sure King Loki and President Loki are the same Loki?
That's what I thought. Maybe I'm misreading it, but I thought it was just more scenes of that character, but maybe I'm wrong.
It could be. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't know if the other Loki had the vote button on. That's my only...
Either way, I'm betting it was something cut from episode 5, which was so jam-packed,
Almost certainly. It was just there was another Loki battling with all the other Lokis. Yeah.
Let's see.
They reminded us at the start of this episode of the quote, I'm paraphrasing, you were never meant to be a king, Loki. You were born to cause pain and suffering and whatever else.
There it is. This is King Loki.
Yes.
So
yes.
That doesn't look like President Loki's in like 20th century
that's not
garb.
what I was thinking of. That's something else.
Game of Thrones Loki.
Game of Thrones
This is
Loki.
like Game of Thrones Conan Loki. Yeah.
Yes. This is King of the North Loki. We'll wrap it up here with one or two more. This is just an interesting question that Miguel Pinales has, which is how does time continually move forward at the TVA? I don't know, like they talk about like the fact that like even Mobius says, I don't know how long I've been here. But so I think it's a little nebulous, but that you, at least the people in the TVA can like have their collective memories, right?
It's like Vegas. There's no windows and no clocks. You don't know how long you've been in there.
They probably stay looking the same, never age.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like there's some, it's like when they fake gravity in space or something, like there's something that allows you to feel like you're in the moment moving forward through moments so you can like get your work done. But I actually do think they're in the quantum realm, and we will discover like they're in one of those bubble cities that exist outside time in the quantum realm or something like that. Like I don't think time, I think it's some sort of like outside time magic thing. I don't think they're in a temporal universe.
Yeah, I agree. It was funny also with Jonathan Majors that, because again, he was playing, a visual version of Immortus from the comics who is, in a way, old man Kang. And then he had the line about I'm way older than I look. So they kind of, they covered all that. While I should mention using the He Who Remains as the name of a different character entirely in the Marvel Universe, but they like to do that sort of mashup. Sometimes it makes people on the internet angry. And then,
like Sylvie and Loki.
Yeah, exactly. And then this is just, I guess, let's place our bets here. I'm sorry, am I pronouncing this right? Assad Freddy asks, when will the Spider-Man No Way Home teaser trailer release?
Oh boy.
Which has been an ongoing question. Well, here's the thing. Here's my prediction. Tomorrow, or who knows? Because Escape Room 2 opens this weekend, and it's a Sony movie. And some people thought they were waiting for the end of Loki. So these two things could coincide.
I feel like, is there concern that Black Widow still in theaters?
Yeah.
Loki just wrapped up. Shang-Chi and Eternals both on their way, that like maybe there's so much Marvel right now that you kind of want to wait a beat and then pick your moment. Like maybe closer to when Eternals or Shang-Chi opens and we're clearing some of the other stuff off the slate, that's when you get the Spider-Man hype going full bore.
I'm sure they're keeping that in mind, and it's funny. I mean, I think we'll get a trailer by like end of August, if we don't get it this week. But it's funny because someone on Twitter is like, they need to start promoting this movie to people, everyone knows about it. I'm like, they're going to be, the fact that everyone keeps asking for the trailer means they're fine. It's like,
I mean, are there people who don't know about Spider-Man?
Or the people have to be sold on the concept of Spider-Man?
Spider-Man, like even if you just are like, hey, there's a new Spider-Man movie, like nothing else, it's like, okay, I like Spider-Man.
Yeah. So,
I don't think it's that hard to sell.
I'm excited for a trailer too, but it'll happen. We'll get it. Oscar, listen and hear on a big question about this that this show helped raise. I know ongoing, which is King of the Sharks asks, Marvel really needs to be careful that there are at least some stakes for characters with multiverse stories. Anytime you kill a dude, you earn the ability to replace him with another version. I know this is the eternal thing with comic books, because there's always a way to bring someone back, whether it's an actual resurrection or here's another version of them. What do you guys think at this point, the on the stakes factor of all of this?
It's interesting, the word stakes, which are used to kill vampires, and we've been talking about vampires in the MCU. That was all I wanted to say. There's a way. Kill a villain.
I think we've long since crossed this Rubicon. Like, I don't think you can put this back in the box. I think it's already out. Like, they brought Loki back a bunch to, like, we can bring people back, like, if we really want to, and I think that it is a conversation that already happens. Like they have killed Iron Man, Captain America is old and gone, but it's still out there. The conversation is still ongoing. It's like, yeah, you think maybe they'd bring Robert Downey Jr., maybe RDJ would come back and do a little cameo here or something. So I think already we're in a world where we know that if they really wanted to and the actor wanted to do it and the circumstances were right, anybody who's died in any of these movies could come back at any time.
And look, it's Marvel, and they do this stuff so well. You know, every time that somebody we love seems to die, we are shocked or upset, and then they come back, and it's like, yay, they're back. So, you know, that's great.
Yeah,
I want to feel like that.
I don't feel like the door is ever really, you know, I mean, we live in a world where Han survived that ridiculous Tokyo car accident. Like, no, he didn't. We saw Han died. So yeah, there's no rules. There's no rules.
I mean, I think, you know, of course you want to be careful and you don't overdo it, and, you know, and have every single character come back. But also at the same time, yeah, I think you have to just allow for the, like, yeah, I don't think there's any certainty that Robert Downey Jr. will never play Tony Stark again. I don't think they're going to resurrect the Tony we knew, but there's a way to have him play Tony again. As long as, you know, dramatically it still all works, I'm fine with it. Like when I watch Wrath of Khan, I still cry when Spock dies. I know he came back the next movie. Yeah. So I'm okay with that as long as you kind of like still let everything have its proper weight and kind of figure it out. But always know that, yeah, there's going to be little cheats along the way.
I mean, I think a theme of what we've been saying all episode is all of these stories, they're part of this larger narrative that we're all following over years and decades. But they are also their own stories. And the primary importance is that it works as a self-contained story. And so if you're watching a story and a character dies that you like at the end of that story, it's sad. If they're going to bring that character back in 3 years or not, that's disconnected from the story you're actually watching. Like, it's interesting, but it's a side note to the narrative you're watching. So yeah, it's sad when Spock dies because the movie you're watching is Wrath of Khan. It's not Search for Spock, because then it's happy he's back.
Right. Lastly, I just want to ask you guys, like, so what did you think of Loki in its totality? You know, we just talked about the finale a lot. We had some issues with it, but yeah, what are your thoughts overall on the show and how it stacks up versus the this was the third of the shows we've gotten so far. How do you think it rates again versus them?
Yeah, I mean, despite my any frustrations I've had with it, I would say it's my favorite of the 3 Disney Plus series. I've thoroughly enjoyed it from start to finish, and that includes any niggles I've got. You know, I like to have criticisms about things. Nothing's perfect. Yeah, and I'm happy that there's a season 2, even though I'm really not sure what it's going to bring me.
Yeah, I would echo that 100%. I think all 3 of the Disney Plus MCU series have kind of fumbled a little in the last episode, where it doesn't quite stick the landing of both satisfying what's come before and setting up the next thing. I feel like there were kind of awkward beats in all of them. But looking at the series overall, yeah, I think Loki is it felt the most imaginative to me. It was the most like exciting. I really liked the romance. It didn't feel quite as bogged down by the weight of all that had come before. Like, I feel like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier both sort of did, where they had so much to resolve that was going on with these characters. This one felt like more of just a fresh new adventure, and I really like that. So yeah, overall great. Looking forward to season 2. Just had my issues with, I felt like this was a little too one note, this finale.
Yeah, I'll echo both you guys. I love this show overall. It's funny. I feel like my personal favorite might still be WandaVision. There's just something about what they were doing there that really appealed to me. But it's one of those things where I parse out that I think Loki is probably the better show slightly that it did. I was getting so much into it each week. Yeah, even if I don't think the finale was as strong. And I think you're right, Kim, that it's like this show is kind of bookended by heavy exposition episodes. But the middle, the 2 through 5 are so fun. And so like just continually sort of getting wild and stacking one thing on top of the other and being just highly creative. And I do like that a lot of this show didn't have to worry about being too bogged down with other stuff and could just kind of go wild with a bunch of new fun characters. So yeah, I think I agree with you, Lon. Like, yeah, all 3 of them, none of them have like completely nailed the finale yet. But I'm glad there's going to be a season 2 of this because, I think there's a lot of opportunities there to keep exploring this fun part of the MCU. Guys, thanks for coming along with us on these 6 weeks of Loki-ness. But yes, there'll be more Marvel we'll be talking about. I don't think we're going to do weekly on What If. We have What If, we'll talk about that, but we're going to certainly check in on What If. And certainly there's Miss Marvel, there's Hawkeye, there's plenty more coming. And we'll have other stuff in between. So thank you.
What's
Kim.
after What If? Is it's Hawkeye?
They haven't said. They know Hawkeye and Miss Marvel are the remainder of the year, but they haven't said the order yet. And there's like speculation.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your outro.
No.
I just was genuinely curious.
It's a valid question. Yes. So we'll find out. But thanks, Lon. Thanks, Kim. And thank y'all for joining us. Talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.